For the future, one of the things we noticed, if this thing stops spinning, phew. One of the things we notice is that each of us may be really using a lot less space, part for efficiency, part for the economy, part because we just can't afford it. One of the trends we saw, and we think we'll be speaking about, is intergenerational living, where grandparents may not have enough resources to live on their own and start to live with their children. The other trend, obviously, is young adults not making enough or having jobs at the moment, which allows them to live on their own. People continue to seek alternatives to car dependency. Infill lifestyles in townhomes and apartments continues to gain favor. The office becomes less and less important, replaced by the internet and technology. Many retailers sell more online, reducing reliance on bricks and mortar formats. I'm sure many of you saw the announcement that Netflix said that they expect in the next quarter to deliver more motion pictures online than they do by sending out those discs, which arrive every 3 days. That's an impressive statement. Amazon now sells more books in electronic fashion than they do in paperback. They expect by the end of the year that'll also replace their hardcover editions. We're starting to see efficiencies reduce the links in the distribution supply chain and change how products are distributed in this country. What that means is different types of facilities and maybe some different locations for those facilities. So, as we said at the beginning of our presentation, welcome to 2011, real estate industry's twilight zone, which we call the era of less. Now, pick up your high technology devices. Let me give you a polling question. I am not polling, fortunately, I'm not polling about my presentation. But here's question number 2. What capital source will play the most significant role in providing new equity for real estate projects in our region, Georgia, Alabama, and Eastern Tennessee? A, private retail investors. B, private institutional investors. C, public REITs. D, foreign investment. So the overwhelming choice is private institutional funds, followed by public REITs. Okay. All right. Jeffrey.
Can you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we know there's a huge amount of institutional money sitting on the sideline. You know, it's starting to readjust. The opportunistic investors are realizing that they can't get the heady returns they're expecting of. There's more and more money going into core style and core plus investing. So that argues, you know, that people want to be, you know, in solid mainstream type of investments, and their expectations have been dialed back. So when the survey shows that people think a 7.5% overall rate of return is where the market is, compare that, so that's 500 over 10-year treasuries. So that, you know, is a relative, you know, attractiveness for real estate. So I think, you know, we're seeing more and more institutional money, you know, coalesce around real estate. They like that spread. If you look at the relative value and their alternatives, what are you going to buy? Inflation-protected treasury bonds at a negative yield. So I think that's what makes real estate attractive. The REITs, I think it's, you know, clearly everyone knows they went back. They've raised a huge amount of equity to resize the companies. They've paid down debt, so their debt to market cap is, you know, well below 50%. They have redone their lines of credit, so they have plenty of availability, and they have a lower cost of capital, which should allow them to be highly competitive against the institutional sources. So I'd say, you know, I would agree 100%. I think people are right on target. Other questions? There appear to be two schools of thought relative to the economy. One is that we continue quantitative easing and provide stimulus money to the economy. The other would be that we follow a much more draconian British model and we reduce spending dramatically. Is that a fair summary? I happen to agree with George Bernard Shaw as it relates to economics and economists, where he said if you laid all the economists end to end, they'd never reach a conclusion. You know, I'm not the one to speak about the economy because I am, you know, just One thing that's good about investment bankers, we can always used to be able to speak about the economy because we had economists, and the rule was you had to say whatever the economist said. So they gave you a script, and you didn't have to agree or disagree. You didn't have to understand it. Whatever they said was what it is. I'd like to think that really we need the combination of both. If you want to jumpstart the economy, you need to create jobs, and I think you need to do it much more quickly than just allowing for internal growth. I think you need to push that along. I also think we have a number of initiatives we need to take care of in terms of spending. But Americans have this desire for an aspirin solution to most problems. And are people willing to listen to the case and then bite that bullet? It's easy to talk about spending less, but it's a lot hard to start spending less. So I don't know if we have the courage of our convictions to do that. That's what I worry about. I certainly think, therefore, that's why I sort of vote for a little quantitative easing, because it takes the decisions out of most people's hands. I don't know if that answers your question. Other questions? The question is, was there any discussion of real estate driven by demographic trends? Fair statement? I think this year people were so focused on seeing the corner and turning the corner. I'm not 100% certain what's in front of us, but I think we would all agree we're at the corner. I think people were so focused on that and distracted by either being very core-centric or very value-centric, that all the demographically driven trends, the medical office, the retirement, the senior living, the assisted living, the student housing, you can look in the book and you'll see how they're rated from an investment point of view, but there was not a lot of discussion during the interview process. People sort of wanted to shy away from the niche strategies and talk much more about what I would call the larger global problems. So I think there still remains an interest. The other thing was, I think people were saying their returns are not as outsized as they were last year. If you were buying assisted living, let's say, last year at 10 to 12, it's probably down to 8 to 10 this year. So it's certainly attractive, but for people who are bookending, 5.5 cap rates and 7.5% overall returns on one side, and let's say 12 to 15 on the other, it's kind of lost in the process. So people haven't deserted it. I just don't think they were verbally focusing on it. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Well, I think Atlanta's got to decide, where the market is wrong in its description. I mean, it wasn't that many years ago we were talking about Atlanta as the poster child for sprawl, right? I mean, then believe me, that's not something I made up. That comment came from a well-regarded member of the real estate community in Atlanta. I think what Atlanta needs to do is it needs to do a perception study, hire somebody, talk to, or survey 100 or 200 large institutional investors and money managers, get those results, and then say, okay, where in there are their perceptions incorrect, and how do we build a story and deliver a story to them that shows them what Atlanta is. We're not here to sell Atlanta. We're here to clear up misperceptions about Atlanta. So it requires a group like this, and the Better Business Bureau, concerned citizens coming together, and doing some legwork. I just think you need to isolate exactly what people are saying. What people normally think of when they talk about Atlanta is they go, great airport, right? Great distribution hub, great airport, overbuilding. Okay? It's just, it's unfortunate. It's just part of the heritage. So we need to change that perception. We need to change it by talking to some money managers. And then what we need to do is we need to build a little PR program and find a way to simply deliver it and put it out there and let people nibble at it. We're not going to force them, and it may take a couple of years. But I think, things are better than they obviously, seem to people on the outside. Anybody else? Okay, thank you all very much. Maxine, I turn it back to you.